Shalom from Israel, I'm Ariel Ben Abraham. This week we're going to reflect on chapter 37 of the book of Psalms by King David. We begin with verse 1. Do not fret, unsettling or upset because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. Again, we continue with the book of Psalms pattern from the beginning, approaching God and approaching our understanding and communication and bonding with God through righteousness. And we insist and we will repeat, by righteousness we mean goodness, the ethical principles of doing good for the sake of goodness. So he begins with a moral statement. He's like, why should I be unsettled by those who are evil? Or have envy, feel envy because of them, for those who do wrong. It's like, how these people who break the laws and are evil, how good they live and this kind of thing. We have sometimes the tendency to envy people who are not necessarily righteous. So David is, of course, contemplating, meditating, reflecting on human condition. It's like sometimes some of us, we are not tranquil, not in peace, by seeing so much evil around. And there's some of us also who are envy about those who are wicked. It happens to me. So we can see that in the criminal society, criminal mind. Not we, but people living in a criminal environment, they envy, they covet the power and the influence and the status of the most evil, the leader of the gang. It happens. So this is basically the ethical context in which King David begins this chapter 7. So he's telling us, we don't have to be unsettling or fret, as he said here, because those who are evil. So why? He will explain later. He's like, we're happy with goodness. We want goodness. Why do we have to care about them? Why do we have to care they do or they don't do evil? Now, verse 2 has the answer. For like the grass, they will soon wither. Like green plants, like herbs, they will soon die away. Now, what is the whole idea about this? It's like, one day the evil is going to perish and it's going to be, we still have evil people being born, they die, they're born again, and it's like they will never disappear based on what we see. We have twofold analysis on here. First, as we have explained before, had to do when David and the Jewish scriptures talk about something permanent, eternal, he's talking about the Messianic era. He's talking about the final redemption. He's talking about the world to come, like the heaven, the ideal state of consciousness that God wants us to plant in this material world, but obviously we're unable to fulfill this task. So we leave that for after we die, for the afterworld. So, yes, it is a statement related to the future times, to the end of times, when he say they will soon wither and they will soon die away. It's like disappointing, which it will never exist forever. Evil will never exist forever. Yes, this is true, but at the same time we have to see it in the context of the previous chapters that we were discussing in the previous weeks, that everything that is not good, let's get this fully assimilated in our consciousness. Everything that is not transcendent everything that is temporary is not good. What is good is what lasts forever. That's a principle in Judaism. And it's a principle in our consciousness. Since the moment we are born, we depend on goodness. A baby depends on the goodness of others. The mother, the father, relatives, siblings. It's a principle. It's an immutable principle. Love is an immutable principle in consciousness. We know that. We cannot live without love. And by love we mean caring, protection, sustenance, support, encouragement, physical substance, food. Okay? So, David is telling us here, like the grass, they will soon wither, meaning that negative traits and trends in consciousness, they don't last forever, they're temporary. Now, you may say, yeah, but goodness is also temporary. It's temporary as long as we allow negative traits and traits in consciousness to take over. Then that's temporary too. But we're talking about as a principle that is an immutable principle. Immutable is like it cannot be changed or moved. We know that. That's life. Like what sustains life is goodness. We cannot change that. What doesn't sustain life is evil. Evil destroys life. We know that very clear. So we have to start understanding these verses, these metaphors, that everything negative in our consciousness, evil, wickedness, these negative traits and trends that we have been talking all these weeks, this is what the metaphor is about. It is temporary. It's futile. Ego's fantasies and illusions are temporary. They don't last. And they're short, by the way. When they're talking about grass and they're talking about herbs, it's very short life. We know that too. So the lesson here is that we have to go back to what is relevant. What is relevant, the objectivity that we were talking about before. What is being objective in life? Perceiving reality in an objective way means seeing goodness as what has to prevail in reality. That's being objective. Subjective is a whole different story. It's my version of it. That's called subjective. It's an individual approach to reality. This is my understanding. It's my expectations. It's my conception. It's what I believe it is, what I feel it is. That's subjective. So objectivity is when we see and we have to pursue and see the goodness that must be in reality. So in other words, if we don't see it, we have to look for it. That's what justice is about, by the way. In a courtroom, what's going to happen in a courtroom? The jury, the prosecutor, the judge, they're going to make truth prevail. Like somebody here is doing something wrong. Somebody here lied. Somebody here transgressed. Somebody here violated the law. So we want the whole trial is to make the truth prevail. That's why they investigate, they have detectives, they have to get, all these proofs that they have, evidence, that they have, in order to prove what is right. Who was wrong and who's right. Who's the perpetrator, who's the victim. So the whole point of justice is to make goodness prevail. In case that we forget. Now, when justice is corrupted, of course, this conversation is irrelevant. We're talking about in the ideal way of understanding what justice is. And righteousness as part of justice. And truth as part of justice. All of them are inherent to each other, they're part of each other. So David is telling us here, forget about everything that is futile, everything that is temporary. And everything that is negative. Everything negative is temporary. and come back to the truth, to what is transcendent, what is eternal. Okay? So, verse 3. Trust in the Lord and do good. This is the preamble to the next. So we can guess. Trust in the Lord and do good. What is trusting God? Trusting goodness. The goodness of God. And then we have to do goodness because that's our trust. We're trusting His principle, the governing principle of creation, which is God's love, which is goodness, as we mentioned before. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pastures. So what is the land? Life. So you have to live life. That's dwelling in the land. And enjoy safe pasture. It's like what you eat, what sustains you is safe. You live in security. It's like your life is warranted. So we're talking about goodness. When we are in goodness, everything is fine. Everything is good. That's our security. Goodness is our security. That's what we want: goodness for our children, goodness for ourselves, goodness for our immediate surroundings, goodness for our nation. So we can enjoy the goodness of life. Okay? 4. Take delight, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Of course, we're talking about a loving heart. A heart that wants to do more goodness. So the desire of my heart is that I want thinking about this car, thinking about this boat. No. Well, some of you can take it that way. Say, why not? Okay. But again, let's try to focus in what is relevant. It's the state of consciousness, not the outcome, the material outcome that we see. As long as we are living in the goodness that we're talking about, everything around us is good enough for us. So that we don't need to fill these empty gaps that we create, and that we develop the need and the duty to fill. So that we have to be aware and watch out for what we wish for. And we work for it, we put all the energy in order to get what we wish for. And then we will see if it's exactly what we wanted. Is that fulfilling? Is that satisfying? So we have to be careful about the choices we make and the dreams and the desire of our heart we have. Verse 5. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust Him. And He will do this, and that's the next verse. He will make you righteous, reward, shine like the dawn. Your vindication like the noonday sun. Now, of course, these are metaphors. But let's start from the beginning. Commit your way to the Lord. So we have to walk in God's ways. That's a bonding that we have been saying all the time. That's how we bond with God. The common traits that He wants to have with Him. That's the image and likeness, by the way, what the book of Genesis speaks about. The God made man as His image and likeness. We're talking about attributes. We're not talking about, he had long hair and green eyes. And no. We're talking about traits and ways, attributes. God's ways. So you have to walk in the same way with God. So God is not over there and we're going in the opposite way. No, we have to go in the same way. And commit ourselves to do that. Trusting in Him, of course, trusting His ways. And He will reward us. Our reward would be as shine as the rising sun. out of vindication. What is a vindication? From our enemies, from what's going on here? Reward. Like the outcome, the result of our actions will be as light as the moon, as the time at noon, at the noonday. So bright, it's really bright, it's light. So everything would be in light for the sake of light. That's the reward. And a rising sun is like rising. It's rising. It's not going down, it's going up. It's like an elevating experience to more and more knowledge, to the point of the zenith, the noonday, the clarity of the noon. 7. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, what he was saying at the beginning of the chapter, when they carry out the wicked schemes. So be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. This is interesting because when we hear about this stillness and this silence, like stillness is like we are paralyzed and quiet. In the Exodus from Egypt, there was a point in which we were about to cross the Red Sea, and everybody was nervous because the Egyptians army was coming, and the sea was in front. We were like trapped, kind of thing. And in the Torah, in the Hebrew Bible, it says clearly like, and God told Moses, tell them to be silent, to be quiet, to be still, and pray. It's like exactly what it is. Be still, wait patiently for Him. So wait is pray. The wait that He's coming. That's what we pray to God. Be with me. Okay, so David is asking us to do that. And don't be unsettling, nervous when people succeed in the ways. Like evil is like our perception of today's world is like evil is winning the battle. We see that it's more evil than good. For some people, some of us, goodness still leads the hearts of humankind. But for some of us, in negative circumstances, we just see negative people around. It's like, it's overwhelming. So David is saying, you don't have to worry about that. And again, as he was saying in verse 1, he said, don't focus on the evil people ways. He said, like, leave them alone. They will die by themselves. Their own wickedness will kill them, as he said before. Now, more warnings or regarding the same subject. Verse 8 says, refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret. It leads only to evil. We mentioned that in previous commentaries, the same thing about haughtiness and wrath as the worst forms of idolatry according to our sages in the Talmud. And what it means is that isolate us from the objectivity of life, which is goodness. When we are angry and when we are arrogant, we separate ourselves. We are only with ourselves. We are better than others, we do better than others, we know better than others. We're out. We're trapping ourselves in our own individual wrong consciousness. We're talking about egos, fantasies, and illusions. It's an illusion to believe or feel that we're better than others. That's what makes us arrogant, by the way. And anger is when things are not going the way we want. We get angry. So David is saying, don't fall into that. Keep yourself away. Because everything that you do in that state of consciousness will bring more evil. That's why we understand that it's one of the worst forms of idolatry. So that we're putting our service, our veneration, in the wrong value, in the wrong principle. Not in goodness, not in evil. David is telling us that clearly here. 9. For those who are evil will be destroyed. We're saying about the grass, it's a temporary thing. Evil is not going to prevail. We know that. But those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land. Again, what is the land? Of course, it's making a clear reference before also and now about the land of Israel. But in the context of life, we enjoy, we're talking about life. If we are in a land, we are, depending on what kind of land we are, if it's a good land or it's a bad land, meaning we have a good approach to life or a negative approach to life. Then if we are in goodness, we will inherit the goodness of the land, the goodness of life. So in this sense, in this context, you probably understand by now that the land of Israel is the good land, the land of goodness. That's what it means. This is the promised land. You're going to live a good life, a life of goodness. You will inherit it. And again, they have to do obviously with Messianic times. The Messianic era, the final redemption. 10. A little while and the wicked will be no more. For David is something so temporary. Yeah, but have been thousands of years that evil people have been running the world. Da, 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 da. Yes, true. But it's temporary. We know that evil, because it's a reference, it's not, it's a reference. It's temporary. What is eternal is goodness. Why? Because it comes from the goodness of God. Evil doesn't come with that. He created evil for us to choose good. So David says that many times, thank God and praise God because He is good. And again, we cannot define God. Oh, this is good, it's love, it's this, it's no, 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 no. It's attributes. Goodness is the attribute by which He relates to His creation and to us. We have to repeat this. This is important. So we're talking about the goodness of God, the love of God, the compassion of God, the loving kindness of God, the truth of God. We're talking about attributes, qualities in consciousness that He wants us to emulate, to implement in our lives, in every aspect and level of consciousness, in our thought, in our intellect, in our discernment, in our mind, in our emotions, feelings, speech and action. Then we will live in the good land and we'll inherit the land. And we're talking about this time, this final stage in God's creation that is called the Messianic era, which is eternal, in which goodness is the land that we will inherit. Okay? We repeat again verse 10. A little while and the wicked will be no more. Though you look for them, they will not be found. They have to do with the Messianic era. Why? There will be no evil. So it's like no matter what we look, it's impossible to find it because evil is out, wiped away from our consciousness. Excuse me. From the face of earth, as the prophets say. So David is talking about when evil will exist no more. So David also was a prophet in his own way as a king. He has this vision, this understanding of the Torah of God that he easily gets to these conclusions. This is temporary. This is, cannot be evil. Impossible can prevail. Impossible. It has to be goodness. So it will be one day in which even if we try to find evil, we're not going to find it. Because everything is going to be good. That's very clear. Verse 11. But the meek, peaceful people will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. So in other religions, they say that somebody, the God or the leader, whatever, is like, oh, goodwill for the meek because they will inherit the land. King David said that many years before. Centuries before. And this is Judaism. This is not from other religion. And again, what we're talking about meek, which is peaceful, by the way. Those who pursue peace. As he was saying 1 or 2 chapters before. You seek the truth and pursue peace. So, see, that is chapter 33. So he's talking about the peaceful people, the people who do goodness, they will inherit goodness. The land here is goodness. That's what we're saying, that we're talking about the Messianic consciousness in order to approach it, try to understand it, try to assimilate it now with this human consciousness. Is to start living by, for, towards, and for the sake of goodness. And then we will be in this land, in this stage of consciousness, called the final redemption of the Messianic era. This is what it means. It's clear. Even if those who want to look for evil, it's not going to find. It's not going to be found. 11. That's 11. And enjoy peace and prosperity. They will enjoy their own peace, their own goodness. And the goodness is their prosperity, their growth, their extension, their expansion. It would be more goodness. And we don't know what that is with that kind of consciousness where evil doesn't exist. But we will get there. And then we will know. 12. The wicked plot against the righteous, gnash the teeth at them. Verse 13. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows the day is coming. Again, there it is prophesying. It's using prophecy. It's telling prophecy. Like, yeah, evil plot against the goodness in our consciousness. Negative traits and trends in consciousness trying to bite us. To draw us to them. So living in ego's fantasies and illusions, addictions, obsessions, attachments, etc. Yes, it's a plot. It's like a war between good and evil. It's not a war. Everything is in our consciousness. So we cannot call evil something exterior to us. It isn't. There's nothing wrong with this wall, this table, this camera, this computer, these glasses. Everything is here. Of course, we see evil outside of us, but it's evil created by human consciousness. Evil people. Then they create evil environments, evil lands, evil buildings, evil places. But evil doesn't exist by itself. It's a reference that God implanted in our consciousness in order to choose goodness. That's the whole point. And we know that, by the way. But some of us decided to make the evil not a reference, but a choice. They choose to be evil. Like, wow. They can afford the luxury of using the goodness of their lives and put it in function of negative things, wickedness. So he say, there's a plot, but the Lord laughs, is laughing at the wicked, for he knows, God, that the day is coming. See, it's like he has an end. This is temporary. This dual consciousness will last. Why God is promising us to have the messianic consciousness in which, as we said before, and David is telling that, evil is not going to exist. Now, why God is doing this? He gave us free will to learn, to appreciate goodness, and to appreciate His ways and means, His ways and attributes. The goodness that He has bestowed in our consciousness, in us, in our life, for us to have, to be, and to manifest, and to make it prevail in the material world. That's the Torah plan, the Torah's plan. So, let's continue. 14. The wicked draw the sword and bend the bow. They're ready to kill, to bring down the poor and the needy, to slay those whose ways are upright. In other words, we said it before, this is a beautiful metaphor, that our traits and negative traits and trends in consciousness, they are, what is that? Envy, coveting, lusting, haughtiness, arrogance, indifference, indolence, cruelty, and all the derivatives of negative qualities, negative traits in consciousness. Those are constantly hunting us. We go out in the street, we see something that we like, we want it. Then we decide we covet. And when the situation becomes obsessive, gets to an addiction. And then we have problems because sometimes in order to feed the addiction, we start doing evil things. We start committing crimes, we start taking what doesn't belong to us, and misrepresent who we are, the goodness that we are, by doing the wrong things, or other people call sins and transgressions. So we have to keep the objectivity that we were talking about in previous weeks, the objectivity of goodness. So the objective reality is about goodness, righteousness, justice, what is fair, what is truthful, what is good, what is correct. Okay? So the wicked draw the sword and bend the bow to bring down the poor and the needy. What are the poor and the needy? When we are lacking, when we need, then we are more, have the tendency, prone to fall. So these are the poor and the needy. So we need to be rich. Rich in what? In goodness, love's ways and attributes, generosity, cooperation, uplifting others. Those are richness, our riches. We're not needy anymore because our cup overflows. We have more of the good we have. Then we're not needy. We don't need anything from anybody. And again, we're not talking about roof, we're not talking about clothes, we're not talking about food. We're talking about we're full with a lot. It's like our lot is God, the goodness of God. Then we're filled. We don't need extra anything. So when people give us things that we don't need, say, give it to somebody else. I don't need that. Yeah, but you may like to have it. Say, I don't need possessions. Especially if they don't do anything to fulfill my needs. And my needs are not fulfilled by that toy or appliance or vehicle, instrument. And we know what we need. So we are not easily bought. So we are not easily seduced and hunted by ego's fantasies and illusions. We're not. We're strong enough. We're rich enough. We're not poor and we're not needy. I think that we hope that the metaphor is grasped. 15. But the swords will pierce their own hearts. Again, evil will kill the wicked. It's the same principle. David is paraphrasing the same message. The sword will pierce their own hearts, and the bows will be broken. This is temporary, friends. Nothing evil is going to last. Ego's fantasies and illusions are futile, they are untranscending, they are temporary. So the more we attach ourselves and the more we are addicted to them, the more we see that they're temporary, because they will never satisfy us. We know that, by the way. It's never enough. So, we have to go back to what we were saying before. We have to establish what are exactly our needs. And what is what we need in terms of possessions. And then that's it. We don't need any more. We don't need anything else. Just don't need. And we know that. But we need to do the inventory. So what exactly do I need? One day, I don't need this extra chair. I don't need this extra pair of shoes. I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. And it's like get reading of it. Give it to people who need it. And live with what we basically need. Comfortably, of course. But not collecting things that we don't use. We see people that they like to collect things. They feel some kind of fulfillment in their own ego, their own fantasy, about having more about something. Clothes, art, cars. It's like okay, it's a fantasy. Now, if they're gonna take that fantasy with them the rest of their life, no. One day they're not gonna be able to drive the car. One day they're not gonna be able to see and appreciate the art collection. Or the amount of watches that they have collected throughout the years. No. I mean, does it take them somewhere? Yeah, the satisfaction of having. Sure, okay. But what else? What else? What is the ethical principle behind that? What is the lesson? What is the good thing about it? Oh, the personal satisfaction is always personal. Whatever. It's up to them. It's up to you. It's up to everyone. So, 16. Better the little that the righteous have. We mentioned it before. By little, we're talking about what do we need. It's not about little that, oh, I have a little car, I have a little table, I have a little bed. No. We're not talking about that little. Little is less. Have you heard about this contemporary, well, probably ancient, but it's very popular. It's like less is more kind of thing. Like, excuse me, what do you mean? Tell that to a person who is a very materialistic person who likes to have things. Like, less is more. Explain that to me, I don't understand. I will never understand. But that's the whole point. David was talking about that long time ago. Less is more. So the little that the righteous, it doesn't say the poor, it says the righteous, the just, the correct person. The person who sees goodness as the objective purpose of life. Better the less that the righteous have than the wealth of many wicked. We're talking about people who have this feeling and belief of lack, and they want more, and they want more, and they want more, and they want more, and they never satisfy. And they became collectors. Car collectors, art collectors, furniture collectors, clothes collectors, shoes collectors. Amazing. It's fine. I mean, we're not making a judgment. We're just trying to bring people to the awareness That satisfaction doesn't necessarily mean in our sense of lack, of belief of lack. It's in what matters in life. What matters in life? Love, goodness, happiness. Something that we can share with others in the same amount without price, without a price tag. Something very simple, very basic. The happiness of being alive now. That's it. No more else. I don't need a car. I don't need music. I'm fine. I'm happy. And then we share that with others. We hug. We laugh. We're happy. And then we have a drink. But we don't need the drink. It's not a possession. You want to feel. It's the feeling. That drink is going to bust my happiness. We're talking about a little drink. We're not talking about getting drunk. We're not talking about the smoking marijuana or getting to drugs. No. No, none of those. Those are artificial, temporary fantasies that are exactly what we're fighting here. So listen to David. 17, for the power of the wicked will be broken. I mean, evil will disappear from human consciousness. David is repeating this to us. Let's get it. And let's start with us. Let's make our own messianic era now individually. By doing this, David is telling us clearly. So it's like, it's not me, it's not the teachers, it's not the author, it's not the rabbi. It's David is telling us clearly. Pay attention in what matters. That's what he's telling us, having less. For the power of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. Goodness will prevail. That's what it means. So it's like, if you are good and you live by goodness, and goodness is your fulfilling, your happiness, your joy, your plenitude, your abundance, your satisfaction. Hey, I will uphold that, says God. This will last forever. So then we have to act accordingly. And why? It's like, when I go, even if I die before the Messianic era comes, I will go to a place of goodness, because that's what I want, that's what I have, that's what I do. That's what I am. Just very simple. So we die, we open our eyes in the afterworld, and then we will be in that place where we were before when we were here. In the enhanced version, which is obviously out of our conception, where no evil is going to be there. No evil, as David just said, will be found, no matter if we look for it. Okay? 18. The blameless spend their days under the Lord's care. What are the blameless? We're not to blame. Why? He's not doing anything wrong. He cannot be brought to justice. Why? The guy is a good person. He doesn't do any evil. But the blameless, they don't have any blame. Okay. Spend the days under the Lord's care. Why? Because when we live in goodness, God's goodness, which is the goodness that we have, is with us. So it's His care for us. It's the goodness will care for you. Will make you happy, will keep you satisfied, will guide you in paths of righteousness, truth, loving kindness, in what you teach your children, in what you do in life. It will be with you. Okay. And their inheritance will endure forever. What is the inheritance? The same goodness what we're talking about. That's what we want to inherit, by the way. It's like, okay, what we want is one in life, we live in this material world. It's what we want, and God tells us, say, what is your inheritance? What is that you want to inherit? And we think about that swimming pool, that mansion, that yacht, that plane. No. Oh, just give me your goodness. Give me the goodness of love's ways and attributes. Give me the happiness. Give me the freedom of goodness. I don't want to feel attached to my possessions and lose my freedom because I have to care for my possessions the rest of my life. I have to clean that house, I have to clean that pool, etc. Now you may say, hey, but that's lazy. If you do it yourself and you hire servants and they will do it for you. We don't want to argue about this. You get the point. It's easy. And David is saying, clearly, that's what it is. The blameless spend the days under the Lord's care, and the inheritance will endure forever. We're talking about something transcendental here, something that transcends time and space. So that's material possessions obviously are not included because those are finite and they are their fate is to disappear. So we have to ask God, our inheritance is the goodness that will be forever. That's the inheritance that I want. That you can give me, and that David is telling me that you promise that you will give. And he will give it to us. Because we will be worthy of it. Because we appreciate it, we deserve it. That's the one thing that we covet. That's the one thing that we envy. That's the one thing that we lust for. Goodness. 19. In times of disaster, they will not wither. In days of famine, they will enjoy plenty. Now, we have to go a little beyond it was famine. Yeah, when there's no food in the land and people are starving. Could be literal in that way, yes. But at the same time, what famine were we talking about? When we suddenly feel that we are good and we suddenly feel that we not have enough goodness, that there's famine, that there's lack of goodness in the world, like now, in these days that we are living, God will say, you will enjoy plenty, I will have for you. You will never lack of this. As long as you desire my goodness as the principle that I, says God, want to make prevail in my creation. So he will provide for us. That's why we have to bond with him all the time. We will be bonding with God, doing his ways and attributes, living in the goodness, the reality, the objective reality that we perceive, that we want. It's the goodness. That's the objective reality that we want. That's the ideal. So when we go to a party, the ideal, everybody's happy, food is good, good drinks, people are happy, people are having fun. That's the ideal. The not ideal party is like, oh, everybody's sad, so people are segregated, one in that corner, they don't look at you when you come in. You don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. So let's go. This is not nice. But you see people listening, smiling at each other. Oh, more people call me. Wow. This is the plenty that we're talking about here. Something that is expansive, not that is contracting, like wrath and haughtiness and arrogance and envy and coveting. It's constricting our consciousness, reducing our own goodness. It's like suddenly we have nothing good, so we have to look for something bad in order to fill the gap. No, let's fill the gap with the goodness that was already there. That's what we have to do. We feel sad, let's look for happiness. Yeah. First with ourselves, then we share it with others. This is a very logical process, by the way. So, 20. But the wicked will perish. Again, so how many times have we have to repeat in this chapter that the wicked will die or disappear? 4 or 5 times? Like, what is the point that King David is repeating so much? This you have to make us to get it. Like, I'm not repeating over and over again. Just get it once and for all. Why have to say the same thing all the time? I can say that once. No. Please, David, keep saying it more and more. We need that. And he knows that. The Torah knows that. How many times the Torah said the prohibition warns about and against the idolatry? At least dozens of times in the Torah and in the Hebrew, the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. prophets. Why the repetition? We don't get it. Say the same thing in different ways. It says, what's the point? The point is, get the point. Be on the goodness side, the right side, the light side, the laughter side, the happy side, the abundant side. That's the message. The wicked will perish. Though the Lord's enemy are like the flowers of the field, they will be consumed, withered. They will go up in smoke. It's interesting, it's talking about fire. So in our commentaries in the blog, in the last commentaries that we did on the Messianic consciousness in Jewish prophecy in our blog, chapter 66, which is the last chapter of the book of Isaiah, by the beginning, he refers in the prophecy about fire. Like the fire of God will consume evil. We're talking about the metaphor of fire is mentioned by Isaiah as David is mentioning it now. So why fire? Would it be water? Why not? Wind? Even if God says it out, it doesn't have to use metaphors of water or air or fire, but he's using it. So let's pay attention to this. What is fire? What is the chemical definition of fire? It's a catalyst. What is a catalyst? An element that transforms one state of the matter into another. That's what it is. It's a transforming element. Now you can say, but it burns and it kills. Yes, but it's not the purpose of it. The main definition of it, you see fire is something that kills, doesn't say in the dictionary. Fire is something that kills, doesn't say that. It's a catalyst. It's a transforming element that obviously transforms matter from one state to another. Now, in the context of God's fire, what are we talking about here? Oh, God's destruction. Why has to be destruction? What about if it has to be, as the dictionary says, it's a catalyst for change? This is the way it is. They will be consumed, they will go up in smoke. Yeah, you say, yeah, but the metaphor is about destruction. Yeah. But again, let's understand destruction as a transformation for something so futile, like a flower, like ego's fantasies and illusions. Those are flowers also, that don't last many days. And they go up into smoke. They will cease to be. That's why I have to celebrate. So David is telling you, God's love, with his promise of the final redemption, will eliminate evil. How? Like a flower in the field that is consumed by smoke, by fire. That is turned into smoke. Now it's interesting because the Jewish sacrifices used to be brought to the temple in order to turn into smoke, literally. So we're talking about an offering of something that is not like our negative traits and trends in consciousness that are going to switch to the positive. So we have positive trends in consciousness, traits and trends in consciousness. We also have negative traits and trends in consciousness. But get what? Both are going to be positive. This is what we can understand about this. And we want to understand it that way. This is the Hasidic way of understanding prophecy, by the way. Everything is about transformation for good. It's not like, boom, everything is going to be destroyed and few people are going to survive. No, that's the non-Jewish way to see it. We believe that God put us here to transform our consciousness. That's why he gave us free will. That's why he put evil in our consciousness in order to choose goodness. It's a learning process. But this learning process has a time, a duration. It's like, hey, 6,000 years. That's it. It's a period of, it's an allegorical period. It's a timetable. But after this time, God says, things are going to be different. This is the final redemption and the Messianic era. So it's a process of change. So we have to be aware that our life, human consciousness, is in constant change for good, not for bad. So if we are seeing that something is changing in us, that is making us do something wrong and evil, then we are not doing the correct transformation. I think that is understood. 21. The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. Right? Generous. So we're talking about that. What does it mean in our consciousness? Negative egos, fantasies, and illusions, negative traits and trends in consciousness, they subtract from, they don't give anything back. They take our vital force and put it in the service, in the servitude, and in the slavery of obsessions, addictions, attachments, and negative things. They don't give back anything. Everything is taking. What is it? Until we find out, like, yeah, we've been wasting our times in these fantasies and illusions. Yeah, that's what it is. But the righteous give generously. When we're talking about giving generously, it's like it overflows. Everything we have in goodness overflows. The righteous people, they give because they overflows in what they have, overflows. That's what God is telling us. He said, you lack nothing. People who are good, they don't lack of anything because they have goodness. That's a lot. It's a precious, priceless asset. Being good. Having goodness in our consciousness. Okay? So, 23, those the Lord blesses will inherit the land. Again, it's repeating. But those he curses be destroyed. What is God's cursing? He dislikes everything that is opposite to goodness. It's like, hey, I put evil there as a reference, not as a choice. Choose good. Evil is a curse. I don't like you to choose evil. Choose goodness. That's the curse. Okay? So let's continue. 23. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. We have to look for this goodness that God is. It's like, oh, God's look at it. It's like he to us, God's to us. No. We have to pursue his goodness. That's our delight in him. His ways and attributes. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. So the goodness will be also with the good ones, with the good people. 25. I was young and now I'm old, and I have never seen a righteous forsaken or the children begging for bread. We say that at the end of giving thanks for the meals we eat. Usually in the Sephardic, but also in the Ashkenazim, they also read it. At the end of Birkat Hamazon, we read this. Why? If we are in abundance, and in the abundance of goodness, that's what God wants us to be, have, and manifest and do, we will not lack of anything, nor our children. It's a fact. It's common sense. We always will pursue goodness. That's why we have to give thanks to God for what we have, for the good land that he gave us. What is the good land? Yes, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. It's life, the goodness in life. That's what Israel represents. Okay? 26. They are always generous and lend freely. The children will be a blessing. Our good actions are blessings. That's why people they do good things to us. We bless them. It's like, wow, it's such a blessing in my life. What you said to me, wow, what a blessing. Made me feel so good. Yeah. Encourage me, uplifting me, enhance my consciousness. So it's not an ego thing. It's good, real good. The objective goodness that we were talking about before. 27. Turn from evil and do good. The ethical consequence of that. We need to be on the good side. To be, have, and do goodness. Then you will dwell in the land forever. It's repeating what he said before. Pay attention. The repetitions is pay attention. Don't lose. Don't get distracted. Turn away from evil and do good. Then you will dwell in the land forever. We said that before. 28. I'm sorry. For the Lord loves the righteous, and we will not forsake his righteous ones. And again, when we're bonding, as we said before, is a repetition, we have to repeat also. When we're bonding with this goodness, loves God's ways and attributes, and loves ways and attributes, and the attributes of goodness, God will never abandon us. God's love will be also with us. We're bonding with him. Our love and his love bonding together forever. Wrongdoers will be completely destroyed. Again, the offspring of the wicked will perish. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell forever. Again. 30. The mouths of the righteous utter, say wisdom, and the tongues speak what is just. The law of their God is in their hearts, the consciousness. Their feet do not sleep. Sleep down. No. This is paraphrasing the same messages with different metaphors. 32. The wicked lie in wait for the righteous. It wants to take the righteous. Intent on putting them to death. Want to finish goodness. We see this, as we mentioned before. In our world today, they have Islamic extremists, like fanatic, like crazy people. They want to kill righteous people. People who are different than them. People who are good. We see this. But the Lord will not leave them in the power of the wicked, or let them be condemned when brought to trial. God is with us. So we have to stay in the side of the good ones and fight the bad ones, the evil ones. It's our obligation, by the way. 34. Hope in the Lord and keep his way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. It's elevate you in order to get the land. It's like elevate your consciousness to the level in which you will see the transcending aspect and quality of goodness. Something that transcends this material time and space reality. So God is elevating us to a different level of consciousness in order to see, to inherit this goodness that is for the future, that is for the messianic times. When the wicked are destroyed, you will see it. In other words, we will see that in our consciousness there will be no evil anymore. 35. I have seen a wicked and ruthless man flourishing like a luxuriant native tree, but he soon passed away and was no more. Futile is temporary. Egos, fantasies, and illusions. Evil is a temporary state in our consciousness, in human consciousness. Though I looked for him, he could not be found. Same thing that he said before. Even if we look for evil, where is it? It used to be evil before. What happened with it? It don't exist anymore. 37. Consider the blameless, the pure of heart, the good. Observe the upright. A future awaits those who seek peace. So rephrasing again David what he said before. But all sinners will be destroyed. Again, it's repeated. There will be no future for the wicked. They're not part of this new consciousness. Wickedness is not part of this new consciousness. That we have to pursue now. We don't have to wait until it comes. We may die before that. So let's do it now in ourselves Let's do our proper rectification, our own inventory, and start choosing goodness. And love's ways and attributes are the reigning, the ruling, the commanding, the conducting principles in who we are, what we have, and what we do. 39. The salvation of the righteous comes from the Lord. From where it's going to come? Goodness comes from God's goodness. Love comes from God's love. He is their stronghold in time of trouble. 40, and last verse of this beautiful, amazing, enlightening, redeeming chapter 37 of the book of Psalms. The Lord helps them and delivers them, redeems them. He delivers them from the wicked and redeems them because they take refuge in Him. And again, it's a repetition of what we said before, but the idea is to assimilate that all the things that we are repeating, to root it, to enroot it, to make it grounded in our consciousness. That's why we pray. That's why we recite the Psalms. To get them in our conscience, in our hearts, what we think, what we discern, what we say, what we do, what we feel. And then we will be redeemed. Because goodness is our redemption. And we know that. So with this we end our reflections on chapter 37 of the book of Psalms by King David, wishing you, as usual, an abundantly blessed week. Shabbat Shalom. And until next time.